So today we have Jeremy Bond and Marnie
Good luck with that one. Marnie Rostel.
Rostel. I would never have gotten that other. So we're going to go ahead and get started. After this session and before we dismiss for lunch, we're going to take a minute to go around the room as well and have everybody introduce themselves. We have a lot of new faces here, so everyone can know who's who and take some time to get to know each other at lunch. So with that,
Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for having us today. As I said earlier, my name is Marnie Rostel. I am the manager for CMU Online, which basically means I oversee the online courses and programs that Central Michigan University offers, and I provide the administrative support both to faculty and to students. And I'll let Jeremy introduce himself.
Thank you, Marnie. Beth already said my name very clearly, so we'll cover short name. My name's Jeremy Bond, as Beth already shared. I manage a group in Global Campus at Central Michigan University called the LMS Instructional Support Team. And we do a great deal of work in support of the LMS, Learning Management System. CMU has been a Blackboard institution for the last 10 to 12 years. There was a transition period, obviously, prior to that. I oversaw support of a number of proprietary components that we had essentially knitted together into our own LMS, and additionally have done some work with Moodle, with Desire to Learn, looked at Canvas. Despite sticking with Blackboard for a good long time, we've had a fair amount of exposure to other tools as well. As Marnie gets started this morning, I'm going to scamper around the room a little bit and pass out a response device. We're going to have a little bit of play along the way. We broke it up into several components, so you can have some fun and interact with the content as well.
Okay. To get us started, I'm going to provide just a real brief overview as to how CMU is set up for providing the support and functionality for online learning. Many units at the university are charged with providing support and assistance to online courses and programs. So anybody that's from course scheduling or faculty recruiting and contracting to our registration team to our financial aid team. But there are three main departments that are charged directly with the development and delivery of online courses. Jeremy and I being representative of two of those departments. But courses begin with our Center for Instructional Design, where an instructional designer is paired with the subject matter expert, which is the faculty member, and they collaborate together to create the online classroom and the online course. Once the course has been developed, our Center for Instructional Design, or CID, provides that course content to my team, CMU Online, for providing the faculty and student support, and then also to Jeremy's team, which is the Learning Management Systems team, for the tech support and training on the LMS system. What's important to note here is that once CID has passed that class off to us, they don't walk away from it. It is very much an integral part of all three of our units to collaborate together, to work consistently and very closely together to ensure the successful delivery of those courses. So there's a lot of communication back and forth on issues at hand, identifying those issues, resolving those issues, tweaking, and just constant communication between us. So, Jeremy, is there anything else you want to add with the LMS side of things?
Every time you use the phrase constant communication, I think she hears from me a lot more than she would like, probably.
No, honestly, if I go more than 2 days without seeing you, I start to miss you.
Reason. No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
I think just well, maybe I do have just the one thing to add. It's just a key point that the communication is constant, that there are these multiple entities involved, and each of our scopes are a little bit different, where Marnie's focused exclusively on things done entirely online. My focus has to be inclusive of anyone doing anything that involves the online tools, whether they're teaching fully online or not. And Ming's area doesn't do anything with delivery or management or administration. It's a production clearinghouse where they're creating learning objects. Ming's, I say Ming, but that's our Center for Instructional Design, a colleague of ours who's so busy we didn't bring her today. Yes.
That you just kind of made me think this more. How many folks are in your instructional design department?
There are 3 full-time instructional designers. They share resources with a centralized media production group that has 2 more full-time staff, and they typically have 2 student employees.
So you have a nice group there. How
last year we developed 44 brand new courses on average. That was a high year for us, 44 was a lot. It's on average about 30 brand new courses a year, so it's quite a bit over time.
Well, and it's worth mentioning, they've developed 30 to 40 new
Yes.
courses and revised that many more additional courses that are somewhere in their life cycle, yes.
So when you say, like, help me frame this from a Blackboard perspective, so you've got, your design team is actually working with the prof and just creating a Blackboard course, right?
Correct.
Correct.
So they're the person that is putting the information into the
Yes.
course. Okay.
Yep. And I'll talk a little bit more in just a few more slides about the design element and the steps that they go through.
Oh, yeah.
You're up.
Okay, so all of you, most of you have your very own clicker. Some of you are sharing, but if you would, I want you to channel your inner clicker if you wouldn't mind. Now I need you to press the channel button. You'll find it there. Press channel, and then please enter in 4-1. We're going to all be on channel 41 for the response piece. And then just press and release the channel button a second time. You should see a light blink. Something should happen on the controller. A lot of you are frowning at me, which is sort of making me wonder. Like we just, it blinked and then it went off. Spectacular. Okay, that's exactly what it should do. It may be that your clicker is working fine and you just don't like me. That's okay.
Who doesn't have the clicker? Because I probably don't need the clicker.
This one's not working.
Take his. We borrowed these from a colleague of ours, and well, frankly, it would be just like her to give us at least one broken one. All right.
Ready? So the fact that Jeremy and I are here today talking with you about how to empower teachers and students to be successful online, I think really does speak to the growth that online has experienced in recent years. 7.1 million students took an online class in the fall of 2012, and the graph above shows from fall of 2002 to 10 years later to fall of 2012 how much growth there really has been in online learning. 9.7% of academic leaders say that online education is not part of their long-term strategy. So by far, the majority of academic leaders are saying that online education is critical to their mission, their strategy, and their goals. 33.5% of all higher education students, yes? Question? This is primarily higher education. But with the 7.1 million taking an online class in the fall, that's just anybody that was taking a college level course. So that could be your high school students that are dual enrolled.
But it's college level courses only.
Yes, yep. 33.5% of all higher education students take at least one online course. For CMU, we find that our main campus students, about 30 to 35% of them, are taking an online class to supplement their face-to-face schedule. Certainly in the summertime as they go home, they go back home to work, they're taking CMU with them, and we see that closer to about 40%. In 2003, 57% of academic leaders said that online education's learning outcomes were the same as, if not superior to, classroom instruction. 9 years later, that grew to 77%. And then in 2013, it dropped back down to 74%. But overall, I think that speaks to the quality that exists in online education. I know in CMU, go ahead.
From the teacher perspective or the student?
Academic leaders saying the learning outcomes are being met, are the same as or superior to classroom instruction. I know when CMU first started offering some of its online courses, it was very frequently a question that I got asked of, was it the same as being in the classroom? Are you still learning the same subject matter? Are you still meeting the same outcomes? Will people know I did an online class? That's not even asked anymore because the quality definitely is there. So to get student success and teacher success in online courses, it begins with course design. And this is where our Center for Instructional Design comes in. So we want a consistent design across all courses. We want courses that are being offered to have the same design, navigation, and layout. That helps to build consistency across all course offerings, and it helps students to build a familiarity as they go from one class to the next, They at least have a comfort level of knowing, okay, these don't look dramatically different from what I did before. And studies show that the more online classes that students do, the better their confidence level, their comfort level, and the greater their success. We also want to make sure that the content meets the learning outcomes. So the delivery method, whether it's in a classroom or online, shouldn't matter. The learning outcomes, the objectives, the requirements should all be met regardless. You want the assessment to match the learner and the content. So exams and assignments should match what the learner is doing. You don't want a 300 level course being taught in a 100 level, or 300 level content being taught in a 100 level course. You also want to make sure that your exams are testing over what's been covered in the class. So you don't want to cover information that wasn't presented in the course room. Because of the high amount of reading that is required in an online class, you want to try to break that up by using a variety of multimedia tools. So as much as possible, incorporating YouTube videos, recorded lectures, PowerPoint presentations, and links to other resources. That will also help meet a variety of learning aptitudes as well for the student. An online course should never become an electronic correspondence course. So courses should be designed such that it requires a strong instructor presence and involvement in the course. You want the instructor to set the tone for the learning and the culture for the classroom, so that we're making sure that everybody is engaged and participating. We also want to see a high level of user friendliness and engagement on the student end of things. So again, courses should be designed such that students feel motivated to participate, are engaged in the conversation, and contributing to the classroom, or contributing to the conversation just as if they are in the classroom. Finally, for us, once a course has been developed, it goes through a peer review, where a second set of eyes is looking at that content. Quite often, the developer can be quite immersed in what they're doing, and it's easy to overlook simple grammatical errors or spelling errors or a link that suddenly become broken. So all of our courses go through a peer review, and it also makes sure that the learning outcomes and the objectives are still being met, and those assessments are matching the learner and the content. And then finally, for CMU, once a course has been developed, it becomes our master course shell. So then all future offerings of that course are copied from the master course shell and then placed into the teaching shell. Yes?
Would you ever have an instance where you are face-to-face with them? Would you ever have a peer review
Yes, it happens most often on the main campus. It's typically driven by the instructor, their request of our teaching center, in which case they'll have an instructional design staff member or a teaching and learning consultant per se that might sit in every single class meeting for an entire semester, looking toward a redesign or an improvement or a change of some kind in their course.
And they're face-to-face?
In face-to-face, yeah. Now, the labor force involved is very small, so the opportunity for that level of consultation is quite limited, but it does happen. We also operate a few dozen sites, permanent sites around the country, one up the road, in fact, from here. And in those locations, it's a little harder to do. You know, we've sent someone to teach, to send someone else to observe is a little bit more challenging. But we have a program that's beginning to get at that too that we'll touch on in a little bit. Great questions. Yes, sir.
I should have asked this earlier, but do you find that the student's ability to do online learning improves the quality of the online learning? And what I mean by that is, as you get freshmen who have taken an online course, does that do anything to improve your ability to participate in an online course?
The more comfortable the learner is, the more apt they are to participate in the ways that the course is designed to encourage or that the instructor is hoping for. And most of the research suggests that if a community can be created and exist, then yes, it's better for everyone. Learning is better, the student's experience is better, and certainly last but not least, the teacher, the instructor's experience in teaching online improves as well. And I think if I'm understanding your question, yes, it's a proportional thing. The savvy of the student improves the experience. So the better they get at studying in this way. And I think in that sense, it translates almost one-to-one. You know, the more comfortable they are in a classroom setting, the better a student they can become, the more they contribute to the class. And the same proves true for online.
There are instructors that are teaching both online, same course,
Absolutely.
online and face-to-face.
Absolutely.
Almost all of them, in
That's
fact, do
kind of exciting research.
a little bit of both. Indeed it is.
My question was related to Mike's question. Do you do any research on assessing the kids' prior experiences with online courses? So do you have any data on that that shows that?
Prior to coming to Central Michigan?
Well, or, yeah, I guess, just any kind of, I mean, you said it definitely makes a difference, but what are you basing that on? Like, for us in the K-12 field, to be saying to teachers, you know, it's important because it's really just kind of common sense that if they have the experiences in high school, they're gonna do better in college. But where can you point them to say, here's proof?
In fact, and I don't want to, you probably have retention research you could comment on, but a recently completed dissertation at the university, the candidate looked at the incoming freshman class, so all and filtered out non-traditional students, so true freshmen, fresh from high school, so to speak, and looked at whether, and they did respond, it was self-rated, but looked at whether their technology experiences as high school students correlated with their self-perception of comfort and performance with technology, and she concluded that it wasn't necessarily a factor, that if they had taken technology courses, whether they perceived themselves to be more comfortable and more able, and her conclusions spoke less to what those experiences were and more to the nature of them. If the experience tended to focus on this is how you use online platform X or this is how you use software Y, then the correlation wasn't there. They didn't feel any better off. But if the technology experience had instead been an active experience about how to thrive and do well online and continue to learn, then those students tended to self-report that they were much more comfortable. And I think that's rather enlightening. She, looked at this 3,000 student population, and in fairness, the response rate was under 10%, but was still a couple hundred people to work with on this. So that's very local, but I think it speaks to your question and maybe a little
So
to
the process
yours,
of
too.
being online seemed to benefit the students.
Yes. Research that I have read shows that students really have the highest comfort level once they have completed about 5 online courses.
Okay.
So the more courses they take, the stronger they feel, the higher their confidence. And again, having that consistency in the design, so you're not all of a sudden throwing a whole different look, feel to a class online than what the last one was, certainly aids in that. Going back to what Kay had asked, we don't know for our students coming in if they've taken online classes because by far the majority of transcripts that come into us do not note online. So we know that they're new to a CMU online class, but we don't know if they've taken online classes elsewhere. So it is a little bit kind of a gray area to know. Okay. All right. And I think the next few slides I've got, well, after this, we're going to talk a little bit about student readiness.
Okay, so grab that clicker, and this speaks to the level of independence needed by a successful online student. And so if you take a look at the 3 options, you suspect that students have to be able to motivate themselves and work well on their own. You would press 1 to respond and choose that option. We're hoping for students who can work independently, but they might struggle to stay motivated or on task. Or would students who prefer to work in teams where they can motivate each other tend to be the most successful online? You can answer whenever you're ready. Those of you that are sharing, if you want to mull it over a bit and reach some consensus, you could maybe, there's probably not room to arm wrestle, but you could thumb wrestle to the side perhaps. Okay, excellent. I think, Marnie, you want to make some comments on this? A clear winner has emerged.
Clear winner, obviously, number 1 is the best choice. We do want students who can motivate themselves, who can keep themselves on track. Certainly, those students in category 2 would still be successful, but they're going to have to be a little bit more astute to making sure they keep themselves on the task those students who really rely on others, you know, kind of a study buddy to really say, hey, we've got to get this done, they're not going to fare as well. We really want students who are self-directed, motivated learners who hold themselves accountable. So it's kind of like the old, when you take on a new workout regimen and you got to really hold yourself accountable to going to the gym or running or whatnot. It's the same way in online courses.
Or get a personal trainer.
Or, yeah, somebody that's going to manage it. It is a common fact that online courses have higher attrition. Does anybody want to take a guess at the percent higher that online courses has an attrition over classroom classes? What was
I
it?
heard a 75, a 50, 30.
And what do you think are some reasons as to why there's higher attrition in online courses versus face-to-face classroom classes? Any guesses there?
Well, I think they put procrastination
Yeah,
as a big one.
certainly.
Put it off until all of a sudden it's just overwhelming, where if you're going to a face-to-face class a couple of days,
Yeah.
you're getting that reminder.
Yeah, you're kind of held more accountable.
You gotta get on this, you gotta get on.
Yeah. Any other thoughts as to why there might be higher attrition? In terms of? Okay.
Community piece, sure.
Sometimes I've seen with online students, they get lost, and if there's nobody helping them, then they just give up.
And they feel alone.
And
Certainly.
that's very, I see it a lot with freshmen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the big reveal.
The big reveal. It's actually only 10 to 15% higher attrition rates in online courses over face-to-face classes. It certainly is due to a wide variety of factors, some that are beyond our control. Life continues to happen outside the classroom for students, and I certainly see a lot of that with our students that come to us that had an unexpected death in the family, or they had a severe illness, things that really prevented them from participating in the classroom. But there are a variety of factors that do contribute to attrition that we can control, and a lot of them that you spoke about, that feeling of isolation, that I'm alone in my learning, that I don't have classmates that I can collaborate with and communicate with and share ideas with. So we really do need to help students be prepared for the different environment that online will give to them, helping them feel prepared, understanding the different learning skill sets that they're going to need, such as a high comfort level with technology, strong typing speeds, and then being that self-directed, motivated learner that we talked about when we did that polling question, holding themselves accountable, knowing what they have to do and when. And then also, we want to make sure that the instructor is equally involved and committed to the course, leading students through the learning and being engaged. This slide here kind of talks about our earlier conversation about the skill sets needed. Certainly all students, regardless of how they are learning subject matter, need to possess certain skill sets to be able to master that content. But for doing online learning, there is additional things that are needed. Because everything is so much of it is in writing, the ability to convey your thoughts well in the written format and the written word. Certainly having that strong comfort level with technology and not freaking out at the first sign of something going wrong. This slide here shows that the age group that has the highest readiness for online learning is the ages of 25 to 34. Now that certainly doesn't mean that the other age categories we can't help to understand what the environment will be like and what it will expect of them and require of them and the skill sets that they need. Jeremy, I think you're up next.
Yeah, more questions. So if a student has difficulty finding information needed for an online class, what would we hope that person would do? What's the best thing for them to do? 1, click around until they find what they're looking for. 2, post a message to classmates or the instructor asking for help. And then finally, might they assume if the information isn't found, it's probably not important. That would, the answers came in wicked fast for this one. It must be an easy one. Let's see what we get.
Okay.
They like number 2.
You like number 2. The first and second choices are great ways to find the information that you need. The key is we want students to be persistent. And again, holding themselves accountable. So going and trying to find the answer on their own, or if a technical issue arises, trying to at least look for the obvious reasons as to why it's occurring, and doing a little troubleshooting. If the student can't find the information or resolve the issue, then it's certainly reaching out for help. Again, not feeling like they're left alone, that they're isolated, but knowing they can reach out to their classmates or their instructor for additional information. So this slide here shows us that individual attributes do get better as we age. So we do get smarter as we grow older. So individual attributes such as not procrastinating, managing time, knowing what your deadline dates are and meeting those, persisting through your coursework in terms of learning the subject matter or reading those chapters or completing assignments, and reaching out for help if help is needed. If you can't find that piece of information, you are having technical issues. Studies show that ages 55 and older are the best groups at doing this, but again, it's not that we can't help the other age groups be better at reaching out and seeking help when needed or keeping themselves accountable for their work.
So much of that is, they don't have young kids, they don't have.
It could be, very well. They've got the time and the availability to do that.
I think this was smart.
So one of the things that I try to do as an administrator is help both faculty and students understand what the online environment will be like. So for faculty, I want them to drive engagement in that classroom and encourage collaboration, encourage participation. On the student side, they need to realize they have to keep themselves engaged. They are responsible for getting into that class and participating and collaborating with other classmates. I want faculty to lead the learning. Did you have a question?
Yeah, related to the top bullet there about engagement and collaboration. A lot of us have seen traditional online classes where a lot of the student-to-student interaction happens in a discussion board, perhaps a wiki. What types of newer technologies are your instructors using to foster engagement between students?
I was napping. No, that's a great question. We license a tool from Blackboard called Collaborate, but if you've not heard of that, you think instead of Skype or GoToMeeting, WebEx, it's very similar in nature to that. So that's really allowed many of our classes to extend a synchronous environment. It's allowed us to provide that space to students, even if an instructor is not present, so students can meet with each other in real time. The meetings that occur in those settings are recorded. So the students can play back an MP3 only for audio, an MP4 for audio and video, or even watch a full playback of all the action. So anything that might have transpired, chat, video, whiteboard, those types of environments. Obviously the interaction is very rich and live because it's in real time. The flip side of that is now it has re-added one of the troublesome restrictions of learning is the same time, same place kind of aspect to it. And so discussion forums, threaded conversation, wikis, blogging tools, journaling tools, where the distinction I would make there is the blogging is a more public type of approach, at least within the context of the course, and a journal then is more closed, it's more between the student and the instructor, thinking of it more like the old composition books that we might have passed out and collected. But beyond those kinds of things, I see people. And I think in terms of like the technology adoption curve, if you've read Prensky at all, this dabbling, new things, new ways, way out here on the fourth end of it. We have a lot of faculty, I think, that are using newer tools, but they're doing some of the same things they've done with the older tools. But I think online learning in general is at this precipice where it's going to break into that last end of the adoption curve. Does that get to your question?
Yeah.
So we've got all those traditional tools and some new things, and we're trying to funnel more activity into the more innovative approaches to things.
So we want faculty to lead students through the learning, again, creating that classroom culture, setting that tone, the expectations. We want students to be those self-motivated, self-directed students, holding themselves accountable. Both groups need to provide strong, clear communications, which is quite often easier said than done because everything is done pretty much through the written word. So trying to make sure that you're providing clear, concise instructions to a student, and on the student side, when you have to email your instructor, making sure you're giving them the big picture of everything that you're trying to convey to them. We want faculty to have prompt response to students. So when they do email and need that help, there's a quick response time back to the student. Again, keeping in mind that it's not synchronous communication, it's asynchronous, so making sure there is at least a quick turnaround time. Students, again, holding themselves accountable for learning, mapping out what they have due and when on a calendar so that they know. We want instructors to provide timely feedback and grading so the students know where they stand at in the class and the areas that they need to improve upon. And it's critical for online students to keep themselves organized, be prepared, not procrastinate, know what the next thing is that they have upcoming in their class and be thinking forward about that. Instructors should be reducing barriers to learning so that students are able to master the content. But on the flip side of that, we don't want students to think that the instructors need to do everything for them. They need to themselves be accountable for learning that subject matter and mastering it, knowing the resources that are available to them, and being proactive in reaching out and utilizing them.
Okay, so, in our context, we expect online learners to understand that there's a significant time commitment to studying online. And I think it speaks to that procrastination item that was brought up earlier. So how long should a learner be prepared to spend on a given online course? Averages 8 to 12 hours, 3 to 7 hours, or 0 to 2 hours? It does depend. Let's call it a 3-credit course. Let's call it a 3-credit course. It depends. None of you are carrying bags of fruit or vegetables, right? Just take a guess. Take a guess. There's a lot of deliberating going on with this one. Keeping in mind, too, that we're really including in this all the time that the student would have spent in a classroom, in a seat, and all the time we hope she spends
Outside
on
of
the
that.
reading, on the work, etc. Got a couple holdouts. Let's call it. Ready?
Okay.
We've got 5 undecided folks here. Arnie, take it away.
In actuality, we want students to expect to devote 8 to 12 hours a week on their online studies. Now again, the whole "it depends" part is certainly a factor. That's assuming it's a 3-credit-hour class. It really also depends on the student's familiarity with the subject matter and their comfort level with it. So if it's a new concept, a new area for them, they might be higher on that 12-hour end. If it's something that they've had before, they've at least got some experience with it, it might be a little bit on the lower end.
So with that being said, do you try to limit the number of online courses? a
We
student
do.
takes at a
We
time?
do. We don't have a rule or anything that says you can only do X, but we actually recommend to students, we're on 8-week terms. So within one semester, they can do 2 classes. Per term, we're recommending 2 classes, maybe 3 if you're on that higher end of, hey, this is my 6th online class, this is my 7th one. I'm not working. I plan on doing this full time. You know, we have a lot of non-traditional students in our classes, so they're working adults, raising families. You know, so they're doing multiple things besides just going to school. We actually have a campaign in which we're calling students that are in 3 or more online classes simultaneously, just to make sure that they understand you don't need to do this many. And please understand this is a big commitment on your part. I just had a student I talked to last week who had enrolled herself, brand new student with us, 4 online classes, and one of them was math and a Psych 100, which it's a 100 level class, but it's a tough course. And she just really didn't have any idea what she was getting herself into. So we had a good conversation about the requirements and how much she would really have to devote. She ended up dropping 2 of them. And I think she's got a much more manageable schedule now. All of CMU Online's courses are held to the same academic standards and learning outcomes as if they're being taught on our main campus in the classroom. But really what differs is the 8-week accelerated terms, the asynchronous component where there's not that instantaneous back and forth communication, and so much of it being done via the written word. We need to really help students understand and be prepared for what that environment is like. I really don't think that they do comprehend truly how difficult and how challenging it can be. So the better we can help them understand that environment and the technical skills and the learning skills that they need, the better off we're going to be at driving academic success.
Maybe if your online courses or your son do, but if you still require a textbook,
Yes, all of them pretty much do.
is it a digital textbook though, or is it?
We statistics show that only about 30% of students actually purchase ebooks. Now, I'm imagining that's going to increase now that we've got, you know, all the different reading devices. Our students from our book vendors still hover around that 25 to 30% mark. We try to always provide an ebook when it's available.
But a lot of these still require additional.
Physical textbooks, yes. What we're seeing a lot now in the textbook arena is publishers, and I'm probably sure you're at your level, at the secondary level as well. Publishers are providing not only the textbook, but additional software that goes along with it. So we're seeing that software environment where students are going into their Blackboard course shell, but then they're also going into the publisher software for assignments and lectures and additional components as well.
There's one other trend related to that I think, and it supports your statistic, Marty, but the preference for ebook versus traditional print book increases as the student's online study increases.
Oh.
And part of it
Makes
is
sense.
thought to be related to the realization that they can actually do more with the electronic text, the indexing, the searchability, the highlighting, the note-taking, the media that's usually embedded. When they're comparing them as though they're apples and apples instead of apples and oranges, which a novice learner is more inclined to do, they tend to opt for what they know. Here again, as their experience online grows, the preference for e-text also increases. It's modest, but it's what moves from that 25 to 30%.
So one of the things that I strive to do is to help students understand these learning skills in the environment. So in response to that, we created what's called the Online Learning Resource Center webpage. And here students can see a variety of different resources where they can see not only the functionality of an online class, but also the technical aspects behind it. We have on here an online learning assessment quiz, which is a 15-question quiz, which a lot of the questions that you're answering throughout this presentation today are taken directly from that online learning assessment, so you get a feel of what we're asking and the direction that we're trying to inform students about the online learning. We also created an e-learning communications best practice guide, again, to help with those clear, concise communications between student and instructor. This gives them just some general NETIQ etiquette and some basic things that they should always include in their email to their instructor, so the instructor has that big picture.
Do you require any kind of training for the professors who are teaching these courses?
We do.
Is it mandatory then?
Somewhat, yes.
And what do you have?
Yes. So, I mean, if it were up to us, yes, it would be required, punishable by death if not completed. But we have several populations teaching for us. Some are in our faculty association, some are what's called fixed term, and others are temporary. We're most able to enforce requirements on the temporary group. And our ability to do so sort of declines relative to each of the other two groups. What we're finding is that most instructors are quite willing to take part after they've taught without having had training. And so we have pretty great success, and we're going to comment on some of our development activities. The questions always have this foresight aspect. We really didn't prep her in advance. In fact, this doesn't speak to faculty training, but we've spent this time talking about what we want from the learner. We want them to be self-regulated and independent and motivated, and many times they aren't so much of those things. And so Marnie and I pioneered a service a few years ago now. We're a couple of years into it, and we call it our Online Ally. And what we've done is found from among the students taking online courses at CMU, campus students who have taken several. In fact, the two individuals that are working for me now in this capacity have each taken at least a half a dozen. They've earned 4-point.
Yeah, the key is they've been successful as well.
Right, that's the three things, that we had to have access to them. So we were looking for students that we could employ who had studied online, who were successful. The last piece is probably the most key, because I was successful in high school too. But if you had asked me then, why have you been successful, I really didn't know. I didn't have a very good answer to that. And the young ladies that are our allies today, they're successful, and they're cognizant of why they've been successful. They know their methods, they know things they've done that have worked, they're effective writers, they're planners, they keep calendars, these kinds of things. And so we've opened this service up to all students to make contact with them, and the services they're providing are outside the realm of technical support. They're outside the realm of academic advising. They're outside the realm of administrative support, what Marnie's group might be helping them with. Get me transferred, get me out, get me in, where's my book? To things more like, I can't find this. It says in this announcement I'm supposed to find X, can you help me? The allies are empowered to jump into any course and guide the student step by step. The analogy that we use, and maybe it's a metaphor, I don't know if there's any English teachers here that can correct me, that we use in my group is that we teach fishing. The allies teach fishing. They don't pass out fish because there's only 2 of them and there's thousands of students. But the number one service that they provide, and I say number one, it's not an overwhelming majority, it's not a majority at all, but about 1 in 7 requests that they receive is related to time management. Can you help me plot all of these due dates, these examination windows, the paper revision process? Help me plot that into my life. And we see students at all levels asking for this. Dual enrolled students, new students, where the things they're having plotted in are shifts at McDonald's or Starbucks versus my son's soccer game, my daughter's piano lessons, my band's in the shop, I lost my job last week, so I want to, and they're helping students manage all these kinds of concerns. Occasionally it's merely just a liaison. This is my question, who should I be talking to? They can get them back in touch with Marnie, get them back in touch with technical support. Did you want to add anything that I'm leaving
I
out?
think you've done a great job summarizing
We
it.
love the allies.
It's been a
We
great
really love
service.
the allies. We've done a fair amount of research into which students are contacting them. And that, we found that to be fairly interesting. It tends to be, it wasn't exactly who we were hoping for, right? We're hoping for the students who are doing really poorly, that they can help get them to a high level of performance. And instead, it tends to be mid-performing students, that they can get them boosted into the A-B range sometimes. Yes?
Who are the allies and how do you train them? Are
They, right now, they are 2 undergraduate students at CMU, both of whom have taken several courses online with us. One of them, in fact, was an especially fortunate find. She started dual enrolling as a junior in high school, so she's had extensive online experience. She shared it with groups, so I don't think it would be an issue for me to share as well, that she also has ADHD. And so her ability to mentor others struggling has been phenomenal. Training's pretty extensive because they end up talking to some very agitated learners sometimes. And so what we looked for were previous customer service experiences, a current, and any of you that have worked with students, you know, the turnover might be every semester, it might be every academic year. So we try to get them providing value as quickly as we can, and part of it is choosing the right person for the role. The 2 that are working for us now, one of them is a human resources major and has done a year's worth of mock interviewing. It was a perfect translation skill set. The other young lady worked for a fitness center, a gym, and part of her responsibilities there were making cold calls. So if the people she called weren't agitated, they were sometimes by the time she let them go. And so we work with them, Marnie's group works with them.
A lot of it's the train-the-trainer approach. As you bring a new
Right.
ally in, you've got a veteran ally that's training the next person. And you're kind of easing them into it as well. You know, they
Well-
start out with some emails, they're getting their feet wet, and then they're taking phone calls.
Right, it's a while before we put them on the phones. With email, we can sort of pace it. You know, we can work on
Research your answer.
responses, help them draft responses. So the upfront investment is significant, but they're serving term in and term out around 2% of the total enrolled students. So it is a niche. It is growing. They went from about 0.5% to 2% in the last 24 months or so. But choose carefully if you start a service like this. Finding the right people is critical. Any other questions about allies before we continue? Another resource in terms of preparing students is that we've published and put out a sample course. They don't have to take it, it's not required. They're given access to it under an anonymous login. So there's really no record keeping around this, but it lets them experience the master layout, it lets them experience the presentation of some content. They're able to experience the interactivity, some of the asynchronous tools that are part of the set. And they're able to do it in a way that has no stakes. low stakes, no stakes experimentation we found to be important and valuable. But again, it's optional.
Yes.
Did you want to add anything to that?
No, just that it helps to build students' comfort level with what the online classroom will be like before they're actually ever in their classroom.
Do they have to be enrolled in Central
No.
so they can
No.
access that?
It's, the access is online preview. I mean, there's the webpage that you get to this link,
Yeah.
tells you exactly how you log in. So it's right on our,
Mind if a few thousand Michigan high school students?
no, go right ahead. I don't think they'd crash the system or
No,
anything, no.
no.
Jeremy's done a really nice job of building in tutorials. As you click on each of the buttons, there's a nice tutorial that it kind of explains what this area of the course is, what it does, how to use some of the technology, the features of it. You can take a sample quiz on here. You can post something to the discussion board.
That's more oriented towards using Blackboard too, right?
It's
Correct.
definitely, yes.
Yeah, it gives them that experience of navigating what a typical course is going to look like. That being said, one of the interesting hurdles with this is to keep it current. Now, as new technologies get introduced into our environment, we have to be diligent to get back into this and keep it current enough that it continues to mirror a real course. Actually, we'll share back our presentation with the folks that we worked with to join you today, and we can include details on how to gain access to this in the event that it's of interest. Another piece, and this is more the technological versus behaviors and preparedness, but it's just another form of preparedness. We have a system check page that students can visit with the hardware that they intend to use in order to complete their courses, and it tests their systems for a number of things that play into their machine's ability to successfully access and interact with our environment. Yes?
Did you purchase the, whatever it's called, so that your courses can be, viewed on iPhone?
Mobile learning.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember what it's called.
We initially had the free version when they were partnering with Sprint. Later we went to the model where we had the full version, but students had to pay for the app themselves. And then most recently, we are covering the cost, and students have no charge to use the Mobile Learn app.
Is that being utilized quite a bit, or what kind of feedback?
It's very prevalently downloaded. It's used fairly heavily, but I don't think to great effect yet. And that's more, I think that speaks more to the limitations of the app than it does to our user body's willingness to load it. And where I'll qualify that is to put it in a different context. For a while, Blackboard had a similar app where it was Facebook Sync that they offered. We didn't market it. We did not advertise it. We put it in place, and within a week, we had just north of 15,000 adoptions of it. So the app culture, students find this stuff and they load it, and where the issue has come is that Mobile Learn doesn't quite give you a full experience. It's definitely geared for the learner, not the instructor, but discussion-heavy courses, it's very robust for that. It will allow students to take assessments on mobile devices if the assessments are configured as mobile assessments. But there's a lot of cultural disparity with our instructors. Not everyone wants students taking a test on a device that big. And so some of those things we're working through. This technology is primarily backed by a product called BrowserHawk from Scyscape. And then a number of proprietary kinds of technologies that are checking certain things. But what we're doing here is the equivalent of making sure students have reliable transportation to a classroom course, to a campus, to a school. Translating into the virtual world, is their computer ready to do this? Is their internet connection adequate? Are they up to date? Those kinds of things. And with that, another question. A student's approach to completing a project for class, what would we have them do? Ideally, shall they work ahead so they don't have to worry about turning things in at the last minute? Are we hoping that they try not to procrastinate, but they need reminders of approaching deadlines to stay on track? Or third, are we hoping they take advantage of working under pressure and finish things only at the last minute? Nobody's struggling with this one. There are certainly probably two more ideal answers with this one. Excellent.
Yep.
The ideal, of course, is that we want them working ahead. And I'm gonna let, Marnie's got some things to add to this one, but I wanna say here, it's even more important online because they may not have immediate face-to-face access to each and every one of us on a daily basis. So if they do run into challenges, they're confused, they need assistance, they're gonna reach out for it through some asynchronous means. You know, through a post on an FAQ board or to an email, or they're gonna send a text. And there will be a delay in response. And so it makes it all the more important that they work in advance rather than in arrears.
Yeah. Absolutely. For the group that, likes to work under pressure, that tends to procrastinate, online learning is not really going to be the environment that's going to help them be successful. We want students that know what they have upcoming, what those deadline dates are, and again, being responsible for getting in there and getting that work completed. Also on our online learning resource webpage, we have characteristics that successful students that have been successful online have displayed. Certainly taking initiative, getting into that course when it becomes available, knowing what the assignments are, knowing those due dates, working ahead, not procrastinating, being engaged with their classmates and the instructors, contributing to the conversation. A lot of those discussion board components become more valuable because students are able to contribute their own experiences, their own opinions and insights. And we got a very diverse classroom, so we get students from all over the country, all walks of life, holding different jobs, that all can contribute and help each other learn. Organization is key. We want students to be organized, have a study area that is quiet and free from distractions. One of my pet peeves is, online gives you the convenience and flexibility, but I don't want to see students sitting on the couch in their pajamas and slippers doing their classes. I want them to be in a classroom or a study area where it's quiet, free from distractions, free from the dog, free from the TV, free from the kids, where they are able to focus and concentrate on their course room materials. Persisting in their coursework. So holding themselves accountable, completing that assignment that they've been putting off too long, getting through tough subject matter that they know is difficult to learn, and setting goals for themselves, helping to keep themselves motivated. And equally important, as they reach those goals, taking time to celebrate, even if it's just in little things, going out to dinner with friends, whatnot, but recognizing the hard work that they put into it and the accomplishments that they've reached.
So the other side of the equation, obviously, is preparing teachers, preparing the faculty that will teach the online courses. And we have a great deal of things in place. As much support as the students need, there tends to be complementary support, supplementary support that's equally required and necessary to instructors. And so when it comes to the online environment, there's a set of technical skills. And so at the university, we provide technical training. We want to create increased awareness of different learning styles, different approaches to learning. The varying intelligences are important, those kinds of things. And the importance of two key things between the online environment and the instructor role, were this relationship between the importance of communication and the maintaining of instructor presence. And it's one of those things that, in the same way that students sometimes underestimate how much time will be required of them to study online, we find that faculty sometimes underestimate the amount of time that will be required of them to teach online. Some of the efficiencies we rely on in a classroom setting can be lost. They don't have to be lost, but they can be lost when teaching online. You begin answering every question one-to-one individually and lose the ability to make a blanket announcement. But it can be done online, blanket announcement. Maintaining presence in such a way that the students learning from you online come to know the things about you that your classroom students also come to know. Maybe whatever those things might be, varying by level, admittedly, age of the learner, and so forth. But the kinds of things about you, your preferences, your classroom management style, but also some personal kinds of artifacts and things too. Expanding from that are the more necessary or the logistical kinds of things, I guess would be a better choice of words. Your policies. What is going to constitute attendance or participation as it exists online? What does it mean to attend and to participate versus what it means to attend and participate in a classroom? Yes?
So do you have an
We actually do primarily for the reason that there's a major financial aid component. If a student is on federal financial aid, and Marnie can probably speak with greater detail to this, it's important that that instructor knows the date that the student last completed something of significance. So the last time they logged in to an online course doesn't constitute attendance. It's the last time they completed a quiz, attended a live session, posted to a discussion forum. And so in as much as we have a policy, that's what drives it. The last academically significant event is what qualifies as attendance. Because the login doesn't necessarily mean that they did anything,
Yeah.
Which
right?
is what we have right now for Michigan students.
Is
that
the
they just
login.
log in.
Yeah. You could get in and get
And
right back
we
out and
have-
not do a thing.
We
Or
have-
walk away from your computer and not be doing anything.
And we have that data, but the trouble with that data, the hit counting, the login counts, there's, in what we've seen, there's a sweet spot, and it varies by course, but the volume of activity, very low volume and very high volume, can both be indicative of problems. You know, a student who's logging in dozens of times a day, hundreds of times a month, they're probably confused, they're nervous, they're worried, they're not finding things readily. A student who's not logging in enough is not engaging at the level we'd have them engaging. And that's where part of the training, services, and support we give is in hopefully preparing instructors to interpret this plethora of data that's at their disposal and having them act on it accordingly. So many of the tools, proprietary, off-the-shelf stuff, have built-in tracking, right? If we look at McGraw-Hill's online products, Prentice Hall's online products, a lot of the publishers, they'll give you a window into the student's level of activity, but it's not indicative of their level of learning. It doesn't convey understanding, it's motion. And we all know that the busiest student in our class isn't necessarily doing the best work. But we'll get into some more specifics with resources. We partner new instructors, this is still my stuff,
Yep.
right? Okay. We partner new instructors with veteran instructors in a program we call our faculty partners. It used to be called faculty mentors, peer mentors. It's had all sorts of names over the years, but the partner concept seems to really take down more walls. This idea of mentor and protege in the past sort of bristled some people at either end of that. Why wasn't I chosen to be a mentor, and why are you calling? But they're partnering, and they get to leverage those individuals at the level they need. A great deal of technical tools, all the things we've shown you so far, the system check, the preview course, all those things are afforded access to faculty as well, and they're encouraged to use them in the ways that are appropriate. We operate a help desk. It's not a 24/7 help desk. That's one of the things I share with every group that I see, because I think there's a notion that that's what's needed, 24/7, and our data doesn't support that. We've attempted 24/7, and night after night they take no incoming calls. What we can monitor 24 hours a day is the level of activity on the LMS. And then you know when teachers are working, when students are learning. The LMS is busier from 11 p.m. to 12 a.m., 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. It's busier then than it is from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Activity peaks Sunday night to Monday morning and falls off the rest of the week until it bottoms out on Friday and Saturday, and then the cycle starts over again. With these things being observable, if you can access that data, you can determine what hours you need a help desk and smart staff and limit the resources. We put academic resources in front of the faculty, provide them with a lot of administrative support through Marnie's group, contracting, all these kinds of separate moving parts. We provide them with lots of professional development and training opportunities that I'll touch on in a little bit more detail in a bit. We'll get into what's required and what's not. Is that a question, or?
I guess just like using that data, do you give that to instructors to help them guide their due dates? Because, most students are completing assignments on Sundays, is that?
I don't want to overstate what we do. We sort of share interpretations of the data with them. We don't necessarily publish the raw data, but we do share trends and encourage them, especially with non-traditional online learners, to encourage weekend deadlines. In my own courses, because I do a little bit of teaching with Marnie's group too, I moved all of my deadlines to Friday night. The course I inherited had some on Friday, some on Saturday, some on Sunday, some on Monday. And bedlam is the word I would use. It was confusing. No one knew when anything was due. Friday night was a tough transition, but I wanted to stop my students from ruining their weekends and try to pull the procrastination. The first complaint was the most obvious. We need a weekend to finish this work. And as sincerely as I could, I let them know that there is a weekend that comes 5 days before the Friday. That's the one. But it put a new requirement on me. I'm giving them access to my courses 2 and 3 weeks out from the official start date and starting to build presence, starting to give them a sense of what will be required of them, what they can expect from me. And so in that sense, yes, I think if you looked at a given online course in our organization, you'd find the timing and the dates of the due dates are informed by that data, but we're not necessarily sharing that raw data out.
I'll add one other thing. When the courses are designed, there's typically about that week time frame that students are given for an assignment or an exam to complete it. So it does give a little bit more flexibility, convenience, given their schedules, and it's not such a tight turnaround time if you've got one day to do this in. We kind of build in about a week on average.
And with some activities, our designers do a lot of what I would call benchmarking design. So if you're hoping that the learners are going to have a discussion that unfolds over a period of days, procrastination is the enemy. And so if you create intermediate requirements that everyone must post an answer to the initial question by Monday, and then respond to another by Wednesday, and then respond to a response by Friday, and create that, really, it's managing a structured discussion. You protect them from themselves, you create early participation, early engagement, and then keep that moving so that the discussion doesn't do this across 6 days and then you have this spike. And the response is what you'll see when you spread it over a period is everything becomes more meaningful. The value goes up because you get away from a lot of I agree, that's good, I like what you said kinds of answers to things. So an online student should be entirely comfortable expressing themselves in writing and successfully able to convey thoughts and information using proper grammar. Or might they be struggling only sometimes with what they want to say in writing and properly? And finally, should they be comfortable only with verbally presenting opinions and information rather than doing so in writing? What are we hoping for in our online learners? We've only got a couple minutes left, so I'm going to expedite this
Okay.
one.
We do want students to be very comfortable with expressing themselves in writing and obviously talking in proper grammar. I think right now what our challenge is students are so used to talking in tweets and text and not necessarily using proper grammar that it's a little bit of a challenge to formally write and respond to information. Certainly those that do struggle sometimes in what they want to say and using proper grammar obviously have a learning opportunity that we can help them with some tutoring resources to get to a little bit higher level. But those students who are really only comfortable in learning auditory or presenting information back verbally, they're going to struggle in the online environment. So as Jeremy kind of touched base, we do provide a wide variety of faculty resources and services. We also do the same on our student side. So we do have a writing center that provides free electronic writing support to our students to help them put the polishing touches on a paper, help explain grammatical rules, and making sure they're using the proper format. We provide the same free services in tutoring via a Collaborate room that Jeremy talked about earlier within a Blackboard course shell. We have extensive library resources. Our students have access to 1 million print books and print materials, 75,000 electronic books, and 15,000 multimedia items. All of that is backed by phenomenal librarians. Jeremy's group has done a really good job of creating a Blackboard tutorial library. So here they see how-to guides, step-by-step instructions of how to use features and functions of Blackboard. Then the final resource is what I would call the human connection, which is access to a wide variety of CMU staff, whether that be your academic advisor, your instructor, the CMU help desk, my online team, those folks that help with registering, financial aid, and of course our online allies. So once we help students understand the online environment, we help prepare them for it, we also do some additional outreach efforts. And we do that, one of the things we do is we send an FTO notification to faculty. Anybody want to take a guess as what FTO might be? You get that, don't you?
I do. It's very helpful.
FTO stands for First Time Online. So we talked a little bit earlier about those brand new students coming into online. We don't know if they've taken online classes with another institution at another point in time, but we do know when they're in their first CMU class. So we send out a notification to the instructors just giving them the list of, here's your students that are in a brand new, their first online CMU course. We ask them just to do a little outreach, provide a little extra TLC, again, help that student feel comfortable, not so nervous, and knowing that they've got somebody they can reach out to if they have questions. We also implemented a service center model. We have thousands of online students. My team, the CMU online team, is 10, and we're a little outnumbered. So what we did was we, based on the student's geographical location, we assigned them to a global campus center, and the staff at that center perform the outreach and retention activities. So our Traverse City Center down the road has basically online students north of Mount Pleasant all the way up into the UP. Now I understand that with the way your setup is, you don't necessarily have the geographical dispersion, but the point is that I'm trying to make is we had a gap in being able to perform outreach and retention to students because we were outnumbered. And we looked at it at a unique way, where there was capacity and how to spread that out amongst many to provide the assistance in the outreach that was needed. So basically it takes a small village to help make sure everybody's successful. We also created, no, you're getting, you're rushing.
They're going to want their lunch.
Oh, it's going to get ugly, isn't it? We also created success courses. We identified those courses that academically students have been successful in, and they apply to a wide variety of degree programs. We get students into those success courses, again, build their comfort level, build their confidence, and then help them move on to harder, tougher subject matters. We do a variety of communications and campaigns, again, doing the outreach, providing just-in-time information, and then we have the online student allies. We also do administrative support for our faculty, so we help them get desk copies and the materials that it's going to be used in their classroom. We provide a second review on their syllabus, just again looking for grammatical, spelling errors, due dates that might be wrong, and prompting them to get their course shell open and available to students.
Do you have a way that you tell them that they should have things that can be printed? I found some students that don't read well and learn well reading electronic things online. And I took an online course once where there was no print option for any of the online material. And I was very unhappy that the instructor had designed the course that way.
One of the key things when, and I think it speaks to your question, but also adds another component. In order to be ADA compliant, most of our courses, if the course is being created right now, then the answer is yes. Everything that goes in it will have a PDF complement that's open and printable. Our older courses, if we have a student with a need and it's documented and we're made aware of it, that might range from just providing printable content to allowing time and a half on a quiz, for example, but also transcribed lectures so that they can watch captions if they're hearing impaired. But making the online course compatible with screen reader software, it gets very tricky. Now we need both. Now we need an attached printable PDF, but we need on-screen text that's not an image so that the reader can process it. And you have to have all those things. And ideally, they become part of that course from the point that it's built. But they can be backfilled pretty successfully if you've got good, quick people on the other side of it. Do you want to add anything to that? Does that speak to your question? This, and Sue, how are we doing? Can we run over a couple minutes or no?
I've already run over a couple minutes.
Yeah, we started late. I want you to get your money's worth.
Yep, I understand. How much more time do you need?
We're almost done.
Yeah, time me, 1 minute.
Go.
All right. I talked about our help desk. Marnie talked about our tutorials. It's arranged in this way for a reason. It's important, in my opinion, to have, I hate to use the language lines of defense, but those of you that are on call in your roles 24 hours a day probably wish there were lines of defense. You'll want them. You'll want to build them in some way, whether it's co-op students that are running a first layer part of the time, whether you can get additional staff, whatever it is. Our help desk at the university takes up to 1,000 LMS-related calls per month. It's in addition to all the other systems, email, network, and so forth. They filter about 8% of those to me, to my team. We take between 70 and 100 cases a month. Granted, they're the gnarliest cases, but we get the biggest bucks, as they say, compared to the help desk tech. At the high level, we'll do one-on-one consultation with an instructor where they say, look, this is what's happening. Can you work on this for us? Sometimes it's a bug in the software. Sometimes it means engaging with a vendor and babysitting a ticket for 2 years until a patch is released. But that's the spectrum of roles. Giving them in-person help, self-help, face-to-face help. Let's skip this particular question so that we can go on to this retention slide.
So when all else fails,
I meant a minute for Musu and another 20.
I'll be quick. This is just a wrap up. So when all else fails, you prepare your students, you do outreach, you do retention, and things still go awry for them and they're not showing academic success, we do have some intervention techniques that we do as well. So we do a Blackboard early warning in which we find students that have not yet logged into their class the first few weeks, which is going to start snowballing on them if they don't get in there participating. We're reaching out to them, we're calling them, we're emailing them. Our faculty also have the ability to do an early alert submission, so if they find a student not participating or who is participating but is just simply not doing well in the assignments, they can reach out to the academic advisor who can perform a triage, develop a success plan, get them into the success courses to help again build their confidence. And then we just monitor students from term to term to make sure they're progressing along their coursework as they should. One last wrap-up point. So we do everything in our best capabilities to provide a well-designed course so that students are successful, so that faculty are successful. Nothing is perfect. So there has to be a way to monitor where improvements and enhancements can be made. One of the things that I do is I'm looking at end-of-course surveys and I'm looking at student comments and feedback. So quite often what I see is just little things that could be done to make a course better. So I see student comments such as, I really needed a study guide to help me on those exams. Or this was complex material. I really think if there was some recorded lectures or a PowerPoint presentation or a collaborate or synchronous component, I really could have learned a little bit better. So I'm going back to our Center for Instructional Design and saying, here's some things that we can improve upon. I'm also looking for instructor concerns, such as lack of response, slow grading times, again, which can help put that instructor in some of that peer mentoring, faculty partnership, is that what you call it?
Faculty partners, yeah.
Training for the training and development with Jeremy's team on the technical aspects, and all in all, trying to provide those enhancements as we continue to grow. All of our measures that we've done, all of our quality assurance is what has led to our national ranking by U.S. News and World Report this past January of our programs. That's a wrap. Yep. There are some resources that I provided that might be helpful to you all. So when you get the PowerPoint, you can access further additional information.
Yeah, we'll get the PowerPoint.
Yep.
Both of us, or I should say either one of us, would love to hear from any of you if you have follow-up questions. Maybe we can chat at lunch about the training sequence that's required since we've glossed over that piece. If I could just have all of you pass clickers to the center aisle, just leave them on the end of the table, I'll grab them. I know you want to get to lunch.
Okay, but before we go to lunch,
we want to take a minute to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves. At lunch is downstairs in the lobby. We do have a birthday cake for lunch. So, we can sing, we don't have to sing, we do have cake. Since Rachel wants to celebrate her birthday with all of us. So if we can start, we'll start with Nancy.
I'm Nancy Corner, the project director for the Remsen Safe Bid Project.
Eric Drake with the Safe Bid Project.
Brandy Reynolds from TCAS in Fairfield City and Albuquerque. And Rebecca Young from